Something isn't adding up in the American story. We hear about booming cities, record-breaking economies, and states on the rise. But behind that glossy surface, there are places quietly dragging everything down. Cities with broken systems, rampant crime, decaying infrastructure, and economic despair so deep it ripples far beyond their borders. These cities don't just struggle, they sink their entire states with them. You might think you know which ones they are, but you might be surprised. What if one of them is your hometown, or worse, your state's hidden anchor? Today, we're uncovering 10 U.S. cities that do exactly that, dragging their states down in ways that are hard to ignore but easy to overlook. But before we start, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're pulling back the curtain and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's dive in. Jackson, the capital and largest city of Mississippi, reflects a concentration of the state's most pressing challenges: poverty, crime, and infrastructure decay. Over 25% of Jackson's residents live below the poverty line, compared to the national rate of around 11.5%. The city's water crisis made national headlines in 2022 when aging infrastructure left residents without clean water for weeks. The Environmental Protection Agency later intervened due to ongoing violations of the Safe Drinking Water Act. Crime is also rampant. In 2021, Jackson had the highest homicide rate per capita in the U.S., with over 150 killings in a city of just 150,000. The exodus of middle-class residents has shrunk the tax base, further eroding public services. Jackson's persistent dysfunction adds financial and reputational strain to a state already ranked near the bottom nationally in health, education, and income. It is both a symptom and driver of Mississippi's long-term structural issues. Detroit remains a significant economic and social burden on Michigan. Once a hub of American industry, it now ranks among the poorest large cities in the country, with a poverty rate of 30.6% as of 2023, more than double the national average. The city also has one of the lowest median household incomes in the nation, around $34,700, compared to Michigan's state average of $68,300. High crime rates further strain state resources. Detroit consistently ranks among the top 5 U.S. cities for violent crime, with about 2,330 incidents per 100,000 residents. Its crumbling infrastructure, failing public schools, and long-standing political dysfunction, culminating in the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history in 2013, have all contributed to state-level financial bailouts and reputational damage. While the city is undergoing some revitalization, the lingering effects of decades-long decline continue to weigh heavily on Michigan's overall economic and social metrics. Baltimore has long been a liability for Maryland's national image and economic metrics. Despite being the state's largest city, it has a poverty rate of 21.2%, more than double the state average of 9.8%. Violent crime is a chronic issue. In 2023, Baltimore reported over 330 homicides, giving it one of the highest per capita murder rates in the U.S. The city also suffers from a failing public school system. In 2022, assessments showed that 23 schools had 0 students proficient in math. Corruption and mismanagement have plagued city leadership, including the 2020 resignation of Mayor Catherine Pugh over fraud charges. While Maryland's overall economy is bolstered by federal employment and high incomes in nearby counties, Baltimore remains a drain on public funds due to its high crime rates, underperforming education system, and over-reliance on state and federal aid to support basic services. It's an economic and social outlier in an otherwise affluent state. St. Louis significantly undercuts Missouri's state averages in crime, education, and economic stability. With a violent crime rate of approximately 2,082 incidents per 100,000 residents, nearly 4 times the national average, St. Louis often tops lists of America's most dangerous cities. The city also struggles with a high poverty rate of 22.8%, nearly double Missouri's average. Decades of population decline, white flight, and economic stagnation have hollowed out much of the city, leaving behind abandoned buildings and a shrinking tax base. The education system is underperforming, with graduation rates lagging behind state averages. While parts of the metro area like Clayton or Chesterfield are economically stable, the core city itself remains a liability. Statewide perception and resources are continually affected by St. Louis's high crime profile, which skews national impressions of Missouri and increases statewide spending on law enforcement and urban support initiatives. The city's struggles dilute Missouri's broader economic and social progress. Once a booming steel town, Birmingham now ranks as a symbol of urban decline in Alabama. With a poverty rate of 24.5%, almost double the national average, the city struggles with high unemployment and limited job growth. Violent crime is another major concern. Birmingham consistently ranks among the top 10 most dangerous cities in the country, with a violent crime rate of 1,450 per 100,000 residents in 2022. The public school system remains deeply underfunded and racially segregated, with many families opting for suburban or private education. This has accelerated population loss and tax base erosion, creating a feedback loop of disinvestment. The city's economic stagnation contributes to Alabama's low national rankings in education, public health, and income. Despite some efforts at revitalization through tech startups and medical research, Birmingham still places outsized pressure on state resources and drags down Alabama's aggregate performance in key socioeconomic categories. Now that we're halfway through this list, I want to hear what you think. Are these cities really to blame, or are they just the products of broken systems they didn't create? Have we missed a city that you think should be on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'd love to feature your insights in a future video. And while you're at it, let me know what other controversial city rankings you want to see us cover next. The most liked comment might just become our next deep dive. Don't forget to smash that like button if you're still with us. It helps way more than you think. And make sure you're subscribed so you never miss our weekly breakdowns. In a state known for tech innovation and economic powerhouses, Fresno stands out as a statistical underperformer. Located in California's Central Valley, Fresno has a poverty rate of 22.7%, well above the state average of 12.3%. It also has one of the highest unemployment rates among major California cities, hovering around 7–8% in recent years. Fresno struggles with poor air quality, agricultural water disputes, and underfunded public services. Education outcomes are grim. Only 22% of adults over 25 hold a bachelor's degree, compared to the state average of 36%. The city frequently appears on lists of least livable U.S. metro areas due to high crime, poor health outcomes, and limited upward mobility. These factors depress statewide averages and undercut California's broader image as a land of opportunity. Despite some growth in logistics and agriculture, Fresno's persistent social and economic issues weigh heavily on a state already burdened with complex policy challenges. Gary is a small city with a disproportionately large negative impact on Indiana's statewide metrics. Once a steel manufacturing hub, the city has lost over half its population since 1960. Today, Gary's poverty rate sits around 32%, and its median household income is just $31,000, less than half the national average. With entire blocks of abandoned buildings and one of the highest per capita homicide rates in the country, Gary serves as a glaring example of industrial decline. The city's public school system has been taken over by the state, and basic services are often underfunded or absent. The city's fiscal distress has required state oversight and occasional intervention. Though small in population, Gary's extreme economic and social challenges distort Indiana's urban performance metrics and drag down the state's attractiveness to investors and new residents. It represents one of the most dramatic urban collapses in the Midwest, with lingering effects still felt statewide. Camden is often cited as one of the most distressed urban areas in the United States. With a poverty rate of 33.4% and a violent crime rate that routinely ranks among the highest nationally, Camden starkly contrasts with New Jersey's generally high income and education levels. The city has suffered decades of industrial decline, political corruption, and financial mismanagement. In 2013, the city disbanded its entire police force and handed over policing to a county-run department due to spiraling crime and budget deficits. The public school system remains underperforming, with many students failing to meet basic proficiency in reading and math. Camden's economic stagnation and need for substantial state funding create an outsized burden on New Jersey taxpayers. Despite its small size, the city's high-profile struggles in education, crime, and economic opportunity tarnish New Jersey's image and drain public resources. Camden is a case study in urban policy failure and persistent inequality. Albuquerque faces significant issues that hinder New Mexico's overall development and reputation. With a violent crime rate of 1,043 per 100,000 residents, more than double the national average, crime remains a central concern. The city also contends with a poverty rate of 18.1% and a public school system that underperforms state and national averages. Albuquerque's economic growth has stagnated in recent years, with a heavy reliance on government employment and limited high-wage private sector opportunities. Drug addiction, particularly methamphetamine and fentanyl abuse, continues to strain public health and law enforcement. Homelessness has surged, overwhelming shelters and public spaces. These chronic problems distort New Mexico's statewide statistics, elevating crime and poverty rates, and deterring economic distort New Mexico's statewide statistics, elevating crime and poverty rates, and deterring economic investment. While the city remains culturally vibrant, its economic and social difficulties present substantial challenges that ripple through the entire state, limiting the potential of one of the most naturally beautiful and historically rich regions in the country. Little Rock, despite being the capital of Arkansas, struggles with problems that weigh down the state's image and development. The city's violent crime rate reached 1,364 per 100,000 residents in 2023, placing it among the most dangerous in the country. Poverty is also a persistent issue. 19.1% of residents live below the poverty line, compared to the national average of 11.5%. Educational outcomes are concerning, with low literacy rates and underperforming public schools that contribute to a cycle of generational poverty. The city's economic growth has been modest at best, with a labor market heavily reliant on government jobs and healthcare services. These systemic issues not only hinder Little Rock's local development, but also reflect poorly on Arkansas's national rankings in health, education, and economic opportunity. The capital city's persistent social challenges and safety concerns reduce the overall competitiveness of Arkansas in attracting businesses, residents, and skilled workers. The truth is, cities don't collapse overnight, and they don't pull down states on their own. But when policy fails, leadership crumbles, and communities are left behind, the damage is slow, deep, and far-reaching. These 10 cities are cautionary tales, symbols of what happens when decline goes unchecked. But they're also stories in progress, and some may yet rise again. What happens next is up to the people who live there, and those who dare to fix what's broken. If this video opened your eyes or made you rethink what you thought you knew, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe for more content that cuts deeper than the headlines. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and keep questioning the map.